Good morning. Today we will be on lesson 8. So if you want to turn in your blue book to page 169, we'll take a look at the application problem first. It says, Sasha organizes the art gallery in her town's community center. This month, she has 24 new pieces to add to the gallery. Of the new pieces, 1/6 of them are photographs and 2/3 of them are paintings. How many more paintings are there than photos? Okay, very similar again to a bean problem. If you have 24 pieces of art and 1/6 of them are photographs, we would make ourselves a tape with 6 boxes and label our total as 24. Now, if we decide what goes in each box, 24 divided by 6 boxes would be a 4 in each box. Okay, so if 1/6 of them are photos, that would mean 1 box. So we can see 4 of them are photos. Now it says 2/3 of them are paintings. Now at this point, you could draw yourself a separate tape with thirds and do it this way. Okay, I'm going to show you 2 different ways. You can do it this way. 2/3 of them are photos, or paintings, sorry. If you have 24 divided by 3 boxes, that means there's an 8 in each box. So you can see 2 groups would be 16 are paintings. Now the other way you could have done this without drawing a second tape was to come over here and say, well, if 2/3 are paintings, remember that 2/3, if you multiply that by 2/2, would be 4/6. Okay, well 4/6 would be 4 of these boxes. 1, 2, 3, 4. And notice 4 groups of 4 is 16. Okay, so you would get 16 paintings either way you decide to solve this. Okay, so we have 16 paintings and we have 4 photos. Notice the final question is how many more paintings are there than photos? Remember that phrase, how many more are there of something than something else? You subtract. So 16 minus 4 would be 12 more paintings than photos. And that would be your final answer once you subtracted. All right, hopefully everyone followed that okay. Today I'm going to give you a little preview before we jump into the problem set so we don't get too confused. Today's lesson could be confusing, so I want you to pay real close attention, but I'm going to tell you from the beginning kind of what it's talking about. Let me cover up some of this stuff here. Okay, this lesson today is getting you to see if you have 2/3 times 6, there's 2 different ways to view that problem. You could think of it as 2/3 of 6, okay, which is kind of what we've been doing, 2/3 of 6. And if you were going to do that, again, remember you'd have your total is 6. You divide it into 3 boxes and you're looking at 2 of those boxes. This picture shows 2/3 of 6. And then you'd think, okay, well, 6 divided into 3 boxes would be a 2 in every box. So 2 boxes would be 2 plus 2 is 4. 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, so the answer would be 4. I have to read all that. Okay, now that's one way to view this problem. But remember, multiplication is commutative. Okay, so I could look at this as 2/3 of 6, but I could also look at it as 6 groups of 2/3. If I flipped it around, well, 6 groups of 2/3 would look like this. It'd be 6 2/3. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of them. Okay, well, 6 2/3 would be 6 times 2/3, right? And 6 times 2 is 12. I would have 12/3. Well, 12/3 is equal to 4, which is the same thing we got over here when we did 2/3 of 6. Okay, so I don't want you to get too confused. It's just two different ways to view this problem. Again, you can look at it as 2/3 of 6 and do a tape like this, like we've been doing. Or if you flipped it around, you could look at it as 6 groups of 2/3, 6 times 2/3, which is 12/3. 6 times 2 is 12/3, which is 4 whole. Okay, that's the gist of the lesson today, but I just wanted to give you a heads up before we jumped into it. Okay, so if you want to turn the page to your problem set, that's where we're going to start. And I know that at the beginning, a lot of it looks a little confusing, so I'm going to try to kind of make it clear to you. This first part says, Laura and Sean, I know that looks like Scene, but it's Sean, find the product of 2/3 times 4 using different methods. Okay, so that's what I was just telling you about. Laura says it's 2/3 of 4. And Sean says it's 4 groups of 2/3. Okay, so it's just using that commutative property. So Laura does it one way and Sean does it the other. And it says use words, pictures, or numbers to compare their methods in the space below. Okay, so Laura's method, if she's doing 2/3 of 4, let's use a tape diagram to show what she's doing. Okay, remember if it's 2/3 of 4, 4 is my total amount, and I would break it into 3 groups. Okay, now this one doesn't divide out evenly, you'll notice. If I have 4 divided into 3 groups, it's an improper fraction, but essentially 4/3 goes in every box. I'm just going to leave it that way, or you could have put 1 and 1/3 if you wanted, but I'm just going to leave it like that. So notice if I'm taking 4 and dividing it into 3 boxes, then I wanted 2/3, so I would be looking at 2 of those boxes. Okay, so 4/3 and 4/3 would be 8/3. And notice that's what she did here. She did 4/3 and 4/3 from the tape, which is 2 groups of 4/3 or 8/3. Okay, so the tape shows what she's doing. Now Sean used the commutative property and said, well, that's 4 groups of 2/3, which would be 2/3, 2/3, 2/3, 2/3, 4 groups, which is 4 times 2/3. 4 times 2 is 8, so that is 8/3. Okay, so there's 2 different ways to do that. And I'm going to make a note here. Sean used the commutative property. There, so you remember what we did. Okay, so let's go down to number 2. It says rewrite the following addition expressions as fractions as shown in the example. So notice it has 2/3, 2/3, 2/3, 2/3. Okay, that's 4 groups of 2/3. So they put 4 times 2/3. Notice that they put the 4 up here. Okay, this is the same as what I wrote right here. You need to be able to see 4 times 2/3. That 4 is like it's in the top with the 2. 4 times 2/3 is 8/3. Okay, so if we have 7/4, 7/4, 7/4, that's 3 groups of 7/4. Okay, so that 3 groups of 7, I'll put in the top in the numerator. And 3 times 7 is 21/4 is how many I would have there if I added all those 4s together. Okay, 14/5 and 14/5. I have 2 groups of 14/5. Okay, so if I added those together or multiplied 2 times 14, I would have a total of 28/5. And notice we're practicing this. I'm not simplifying my answer, but we're just getting you to see this repeated addition is like saying if you have 7, 7, and 7, it's 3 times 7. Or 14 and 14, it's 2 times 14. Over here, 4/7, 4/7, 4/7. I have 3 groups of 4/7, which would be 12/7. Okay, moving on down here at the bottom, we're going to show those 2 methods again. Solve and model each problem as a fraction of a set and as repeated addition. Okay, so this is the repeated addition. The fraction of a set is this way. Okay, so if you look at the example, 2/3 of 6, we would have 6 is my total, broken into 3 boxes. 6 divided by 3 boxes, notice is what they did here. 6 divided by 3 boxes is 2. And I was looking for 2/3. I'm looking for 2 of the boxes, so 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, over here, we flip it around and say 6 times 2/3 is 6 groups of 2/3. So notice I write 2/3 6 times, okay, which would be 6 times 2 or 12/3, which is 4. Okay, so let's practice down here. 1/2 of 8. That means 8 is my total. I'm breaking them into 2 boxes, and I'm looking at one of them. Okay, so 8 divided by 2 boxes is 4. And I'm looking for one of those boxes, so my answer is 4. 1/2 of 8 is 4. Over here, we're looking at 8 groups of a half. That means I have 8 halves, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's a half 8 times. Okay, so that's 8 times 1, 8 ones, and that's halves. So that's 8 halves, right? Which is 4 whole. Notice we get 4 either way we look at it. Okay, let's look at one more down here. 3/5 of 10. 10 is my total. And I broke 10 into 5 boxes. Okay, so think to yourself, 10 divided by 5 boxes, that would be a 2 in every box. And I'm looking for 3/5, so 3 of those boxes. So 3 times 2 is 6. Okay, now over here, 10 copies of 3/5. That's going to be a lot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that's 10 times. ... You get the picture, okay? So 10 copies of 3/5. Notice I could say, okay, 10 threes would be 30/5, which is 6 whole. Get the same thing either way. Repeated addition or fraction of a set. Okay, hopefully you're good. So let's go to the next page and see how we do. Okay, I'm going to change the directions a little bit here. Notice we have letter A, we have the same problem, okay? We are going to show it with a tape, okay? Tape's in this side, okay? On this side, we're going to do it the way they show us here, okay? So for example, and I'll explain that in a second. So over here, if I'm looking at a tape, I want you to look at 3/7 of 14, like we've been doing. Okay, so again, we're practicing 7 boxes. 14 is the total, and I'm looking at 3/7. I'm looking at 3 of those boxes. Okay, so 14 divided by 7 boxes is a 2 in every box. And if I want 3/7, that's 3 groups of 2, which is 6. The answer is 6. Okay, now over here, I want you to practice it this way. If we have 14 copies of 3/7, that's like 14 times 3 in the top and a 7 in the bottom. Now, I'm going to show you something. 14 times 3, I don't particularly want to do in my head, so watch what you can do. You can simplify first, and this is a hugely important strategy. Notice that I have a 14 in the top and a 7 in the bottom. Okay, let's look at that. 14/7. How much is that? It's like simplifying a fraction right there. 14/7 is 2 whole. Okay, watch how I write this. I basically say 7 goes into 14 2 times. Okay, or I say 7 divided by 7 is 1. 14 divided by 7 is 2, like that. Or 7 goes into 14 2 times. Notice I've simplified 14 over 7 as 2 over 1. Now when I multiply on the top, I have 2 times 3, which is 6 whole. And in the denominator, I just have a 1. So my answer is 6. Same thing I got over here. Okay, this is so important to learn how to do this, and we're going to practice it here. Okay. Okay, over here, again, we're practicing a tape, 3/4 of 36. So we draw ourselves a tape, and I don't have a lot of room here. 4 boxes. The total is 36. Ooh, really got to write small. Okay, 36 divided by 4 boxes, I would put a 9 in every box. And notice I was looking for 3/4, so I'm looking at 3 of these boxes. Okay, I'm going to come right over here. So 3 groups of 9 is 27 is my answer. 3/4 of 36 is 27. Now, let's come practice the math over here. If we have 3/4 times 36, that's like 3 times 36 over 4. Okay, notice 3 times 36 over 4. Now notice, I don't really want to do this math, but I can see that I can simplify this right here. I'm going to simplify 36/4 as 9 over 1 because 4 goes into 36 9 times. Now when I do the math, in the numerator I have 3 times 9, which is 27. In the denominator I just have a 1. So the answer is 27. Same thing I got over here. Okay. You might pause and try this one if you want. Okay. I'm going to keep going so you can pause and check yourself. Over here, I have my total is 30, and I would break it into 10 boxes. Now, if I have 30 divided by 10 boxes, that would mean a 3 goes in every box. Now, this one's kind of weird. Notice that now I'm supposed to bracket, or my answer is 13 of the boxes. Well, I only drew 10. So that means this is more than a whole. That means I have to draw 3 more little boxes with 3s in them. Okay, so if I do that, my answer would be 13 of these boxes. 13 groups of 3, which is 39. Okay, that one's kind of weird. Let's look over here at the math. Here we would have 30 times 13 in my numerator. 10 is in the denominator. Okay, notice I can simplify these two numbers because I know 10 goes into 30. So I'm going to simplify 30/10 as 3 whole, 3 over 1. So notice when I do the math, 3 times 13 is 39. Same answer. Okay, next one. 9/8 times 32. Okay, so again, I'm noticing this is an improper fraction. So I'm going to end up with extra boxes, aren't I? Okay, my answer will be more than 32 because I'm multiplying by a number bigger than a whole. But let's continue. We would have to have 8 boxes. The total is 32. 32 divided by 8 boxes would be a 4 in every box. Now I'm looking for 9/8 of 32. Well, I've only drawn 8/8, so I have to draw an extra one. So 9 boxes of 4 would be 36. Okay, if you just look at the math, you have 9 times 32 in the numerator and an 8 down below. So I say, which can I simplify? Well, I know 8 goes into 32 4 times. So I'm going to simplify 32/8 as 4 over 1. So when I multiply, 9 times 4 is 36 over 1, which is 36. Notice this math is very efficient. If you can simplify quickly, you can do these mentally. And this is what I was trying to get you to see in previous videos, how I did this mental. I would look at this and say, 4 goes into 36 9 times, so 9 times 3 is 27. Notice that's what I'm showing you how to do here now. Okay, let's look at the denominator, the bottom of the paper before we quit for the day. Solve each problem any way you choose. Okay, well, this is how I would do these. They are relating these two problems, okay? The main problem is, what's half a minute? How many seconds is that? Okay, well, I want you to take half a minute, and in place of the word minute, I'm going to substitute 60, because there are 60 seconds in a minute. I want it to be seconds. So again, in place of this word minute, a half a minute is a half times 60 seconds. So let's come over here. A half of 60. Now, of course, you probably can do that in your head, but you could write it like this if you wanted. And then you could go ahead and just multiply and have 60 halves, or you could say, well, 2 goes into 60 30 times. You could do it either way, get the same answer. So my answer is 30. It would be 30 seconds. Okay, let's look at this one. 3/4 of an hour is how many minutes? Well, 3/4 of an hour. I'm going to put something that's equal to an hour in place of this word hour. Since I want to know minutes, in place of the word hour, I'm going to put 60 minutes right here. 3/4 of 60 minutes. Okay, so let's come do that math. 3 times 60 over 4. Now, you could go ahead and multiply 3 times 60 and then divide by 4. Or you might know how many times 4 goes into 60. You can do it either way, okay? So at this point, let me show you. I know 4 goes into 60 15 times. So I would simplify this as 15 over 1. And then 3 times 15 is 45. And in the denominator, I have a 1. So it would be 45 minutes. Now, if you didn't realize 4 goes into 60 15 times, you could have just said, well, 3 times 60 is 180 over 4. And then you would have to divide that out to get the final answer. 4 divides into 180. I would go like that, 16, bring down my 0. 4 goes into 25 times. And you still get 45 minutes. You can do it either way. Okay, next one. 3/10 of a kilogram is how many grams? Okay, well, notice in place of this word kilogram, I'm going to substitute something that's equal to a kilogram, 1,000 grams. So 3/10 of 1,000 grams would give me my answer. Okay, so I have 3 times 1,000 divided by 10. Okay, so again, you can do it either way, just like I did it up here. Okay, but I'm going to practice that simplifying first strategy. How many times does 10 go into 1,000? Okay, or 1,000 divided by 10 would be 100. Okay, so I'm going to simplify 1,000 over 10 times 100. Okay, and then up top, 3 times 100 is 300. So it would be 300 grams. Okay. Okay, final one. We have 4/5 of a meter is how many centimeters? Okay, so in place of this word meter, I'm going to substitute something equal to a meter, which would be 100 centimeters. So notice they did that for us. So 4/5 of 100. Okay, 4 times 100 over 5. Again, 5 goes into 100 20 times. So I'm going to simplify this as 20 over 1. And then 4 times 20 is 80. So I would get 80 centimeters. Again, if you don't know some of these being able to simplify, you could have just said 4 times 100 is 400 divided by 5. So if you had 400 divided by 5, you would just have to divide it out. 5 goes into 400, 5 goes into 40 8 times. Then you have that 0, it would be 80. You can do it either way. Okay, this might have been a challenging lesson for you, but go ahead and try that homework and we'll see how you do.